All right. So in the last video, we talked about the random function. And what the random function did is it would choose like a random number between a low value and a high value, right? And the thing about that is, when you have a random, you know, each each time it's run, which is every single frame, the last value has absolutely no bearing on the next one. And what I mean by that is like frame one, let's say the value between 0 and 100 was 25. Frame two, the next one is 99. Frame three, it's 0, right? Whatever value came before it has no bearing on the next one. It's like rolling a die. Imagine you had a 100-side die. Whatever you rolled your last roll has no effect, unless you believe in fate, I suppose. But mathematically, ask any statistician, they will tell you that whatever you rolled last time has no effect on the next one. All right. Now, sometimes that's fine, but sometimes when we do things, we want the change that's going to occur to be based off of the last one. Um, and so we actually have this thing called wiggle. What wiggle does is rather than changing things every single frame, you can say how many times per frame or how many times per second it applies. And also the value goes up or down based off the last value. So like for instance, let's say that, my starting value is 50 and, it goes, I'm saying it can go within 25. Maybe the next one is like, all right, well, it has to be somewhere between plus or minus 25. So the next one is 75. But then the next value can't be 0 because that's more than the 25 variance. So the next one would have to be either 100 or 50, so on and so on. It could be any value between it. It could be 76 as you add 1 and so on and so on. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to take this position and do an option. And I'm going to click on this and we're going to do it's under, where is it under? It's under wiggle. Okay. It may just, to be perfectly honest, it may be easier just to literally type it out than to use theirs. But I'm gonna type out the phrase wiggle with parentheses around it. And the way this works is you say how many times per second this thing will occur from its current value. So maybe 3, and then how much variation. So what I'm going to say is 50. And what this means is that from its current value, it can't go more than 50 from whatever its current value is. So if its current value is 360, it cannot go more than um it would not be able to go more than 410 or less than 3 310 if that makes sense, right? So let's play this around. So this gives you kind of more related. So, like, if you want something that just like flickers all over the place, you might want the random. But this one's like based off the last one. So in this case, it's like, all right, it's kind of not, it's maybe you want it to be flickering more than this. Oops, I don't mean to be changing the text. So if I want it to happen more times per second, maybe I'm going to make it 20 times. And then when I do this, you know, you're getting a much more jittery kind of situation. So if I feel that this is like the how far it's going is too far, I could make that smaller, like, I don't know, 10. So you can see, or if it's not far enough, you can make this variation value bigger. So in this case, in terms of position, this would let the position go to wider values. I'm going to turn this one off for now, but let's maybe try this with opacity. I'm going to do wiggle, and then, opacity goes 0 to 100. So maybe it's like, okay, maybe every 5 seconds, I want the value to be go up 20% or down 20%. So it's not going to go from like 100 to 0, but it could go from like 50 to 70 or 50 to 30, something like that. So it's not going to be huge jumps. All right, you can hopefully kind of see the difference here. Maybe I'll do this in regards to rotation. So I'm going to set wiggle and oops, wiggle, and let's do it 10 times. And the rotation can go up to 45 degrees. So, you can see it's not dramatically jumping around the way it was when we did random because it can't go more than 45 degrees for every time that the code is run. I'm also doing it less than, when you do it with random, random does it every frame, and since there's 30 frames a second, it's a little bit more. If I change this here, this would be kind of closer to what random would do in that it's 30 times a second, but it's still not quite as jittery. All right, so you can find out, what is your feelings on this. All right, let's have a little fun with this. I'm going to, we have this text here. This is just a text layer that I wrote. And what I want to do is I want the text to be based off of this sound. So I have this, kind of clubhousey sound going on here. And I want the text to kind of like grow in size based on the hi-hat. The hi-hat is when you get that percussion that like bum, 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 bum. So we're actually going to use expressions to do that. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to go under, where is it under? Convert audio to keyframes. Okay. So this is going to take my audio layer here and it's going to convert it. It's going to basically generate keyframes for me. So this is called the amplitude. So I can either do the left channel, the right channel, or both. And essentially what happened is for every single frame, it can tell me the how high the amplitude. The amplitude is how strong it is. It's the decibel level. Okay. So the point is I need to have this like these keyframes so that I can use this information in my expression. Now what I'm going to do is let's take this text and I want this to be based off scale. I'm going to set the scale. So I'm going to hit option here and let's use that old like pick whip. I'm going to drag it to here. Okay. And when I do this, let's hit it, play it back. See how the text is like growing when the amplitude grows, It's kind of like a fun little thing. Now, of course, the text is very small here. Why is it very small? Because the amplitude is only like, if you look through the numbers, it's like 10, 15, whatever. So that's only giving you a scale of like 10 to 15. So what I could do to kind of like play around with this is we can make a like a null object. I'm going to set this text equal to the null object. And I could give this like a name, like let's call it like a scalar or something like that. And I'm going to set the text to be parent of the scalar, and then we can set this to be larger. And it's text, so it shouldn't, text is always vector based, so it shouldn't, and there you go. So I don't know. I mean, there's probably some other things you could do. Maybe I want to take the text and maybe I'm going to apply a Gaussian blur. And, I want the amount of the Gaussian blur, which is the blurriness based off of, oops, didn't mean to do that. I could also make this based off of the audio level here. So I'm going to set this and once again, pick whip this to the amplitude. So basically, as the beat gets stronger, the amplitude, there should be more blur. You know what I mean? So that should make kind of an interesting kind of effect based off of the audio sound. Oops, maybe I shouldn't have applied it to. I guess you can't. I guess. Oh, that's right. You can't apply effects to null objects, but let's apply it to the text itself. And we will set the effect of that to the amplitude level there. All right, so you can see how you can like, play around with some interesting things here. But this is how you can, do some interesting things by, could you have done this with keyframing it yourself? Yeah, you could have. But by using expressions, it's like right on the money. You know what I mean? Like it just makes it kind of like it's just an easier method to do this. All right, I'm gonna show you guys another way I might use this. So, um, Let me show you another place where I might try to use this as like a expression. So like this is a composition with a rocket ship in it. And it's made up of three layers. There's got this rocket ship, and I got the flame, the coming out the rocket booster, and then I got this like star. Okay. And I kind of want the stars to kind of like twinkle. And the way a star twinkles is like it's really kind of growing and it's getting increase or decrease in the opacity. So you could kind of do that to make it kind of twinkle. Now I could manually do keyframes, or what if we did like the wiggle that we just learned about? So if I click on this and I do wiggle, how many times per second do I want it to twinkle? I don't know, maybe like 10 per second, so every 3 frames. And it's starting at 50%. I don't want it to go too high or too low, so maybe like 20%. And just try it out, see how it looks. I'm getting that nice little twinkle. If it's twinkling too much, you can lower this value. Or you can do it more times a second. It's a little too much if I'm being honest. Maybe like 12 is the magic number. You can decide how much of a variance you want. I like this one. 8 times a second at about 40%. All right, now what I'm going to do is why don't we just duplicate this layer and I'm going to move it. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And so now I have a bunch of stars. I could even, scale them if I want them. Not exactly the same size as each other. All right, I get some twinkling stars. Now, I could have done this by hand, but this is a nice, easy way to do it. And, if I need to go back and change, I can simply change, the, the expression that I used here, and that would make it, really easy. All right, let's do this also with the flames. So, I want the flames to grow. And so kind of what I want to do is I want a little bit of a jitteriness with like the values here. So let's try that out. I'm gonna play around with scale and I'm gonna do wiggle and let's do like 20 and they can move like 5. It's still not enough. Maybe like 25. There you go. See how it's like creating that kind of interesting effect there? So it's like constantly scaling it up and down. Now, what's fun is like while this expression is working on just this part, I could move these together. Now, what I might try to do is like, let's make a null object, and I'm going to call this total spaceship. And let's parent both of these to the null object. And then I could move this across the page. So, the expression is going on part of my object while the other, oops, what happened there? Oh, I think I moved the position point. Okay. Sorry about that. I think I moved the position point on the null object by accident. Oops. And I just messed that up. Sorry about that. Let me try that again. 12th time's the charm. All right, there's the position. Let's go ahead 1 second, and I'm gonna move. Oops. See, I keep pulling that. All right. When I try to pull it, I seem to pull it without the other object, but if I do it that way, there you go. All right. It was a little too fast, maybe like 2 seconds. All right. Not bad. Okay. So you can see how, we're using expressions to our advantage here. Okay.